Right, so we have all the text in the header area now. We'll move on to the footer later, but we have all the text where we need it on here now. What we'll do now then is apply the layer styles to the text to make them look nice. For me, this is sort of the make or break part of the project, because if your text looks really good and it stands out straight away, that's obviously the first thing that the visitor to your site is going to see, and it helps stand out, creates that professional look. If you get this horribly wrong, then I think your site suffers very much as a result. So yeah, what we'll do is we'll go through each of the layers that we have and apply the layer styles, starting with project layer, as that's the one we created first. So if we highlight the layer, as we have already here, and double click on it, that will bring up the layer style dialog box, as we know, and we will just go through again, just changing the ones that we need rather than going through everything. I'll just leave the project text visible there so we can see what's happening as we make the changes. And the first of those is to add a drop shadow. So if I just click on the layer, making sure that the box there is ticked and the actual layer itself is highlighted, and we'll go through these options, changing them to what we want. The opacity is a little bit strong there, so what we're going to do is we're going to just change that to 50%, and I'll tab through the rest of these just so we can quickly change them. Angle wants to be, as is there, 120, and that's usually the global light setting. It can be 30 depending on previous things that you've used in Photoshop. So if yours isn't 120 there, what you need to do is click the little tick next to use global light, because if it's anything other than 120 we don't want to use that. So if we click that off and then change this to 120, we'll be back to where we need to be, which is good. The distance wants to be 3, and I'll just tab through that one, tab to the next one, and the size also wants to be 3. So as you can see, we're getting more or less where we need to be with that one. Next we want to select outer glow. This is just going to add a black outer glow to the text, just to accentuate that drop shadow, but have it all around the text rather than just on the angle of 120 degrees. So to do that, our blend mode, instead of screen, that wants to be normal, which is right up here at the top. And the opacity 75, that's fine. The colour here, if we just click on there to set the colour of the glow, we need that to be black, which is of course 000 on the RGB values. So we'll just click OK there. And the size, well, that's a little bit large there, so we're just going to change that down to 2. So as you can see now, it's put a little bit of a black edge around the whole text, rather than just the drop shadow which was at an angle. The next thing we want is inner glow, so we'll just highlight that. Now we're just going to add a green inner glow, so it's going to be very similar to the actual colour that's on there, so we won't see what happens to it until a little bit later on, but we'll go through and make the changes anyway. So the inner glow, the blend mode needs to be normal. The opacity is 75, and that's good. The thing we need to change is the colour. We just need to change this to that green. What we could do is we could click and anywhere on the green that exists, and that would choose the colour that we want, but it can vary a little bit depending where you click. So what is best is, I think, if we just type the correct numbers in there, which are 174, 252 and 69. As you can see, you can't see any difference on the actual text now, but we have got that green colour going. So if we click OK, that's good. And the size, we just want to change that to 6, and that's everything in there. That's good. So the next thing is the bevel, or bevel and emboss as it's called there. So we'll highlight that layer again, making sure it's ticked, and you can see it's added the default bevel onto there, which is, you know, not great at the moment. So we'll go through and change what we need to. First of all is the depth. That wants to be 630, which is a very, very large bevel, and is looking pretty messed up on there, but don't worry, trust me, it will look fine eventually. The next thing is the size, which wants to be 3. and you can see that looks a little bit better already, but still not perfect. Now the rest of these are fine if your global light was 120. If your global light is anything other than 120 here, we need to click it off and make sure that is 120. Altitude 30, that's fine. The gloss contour is fine. Highlight mode, the opacity of that we want to change up to 100, and you can't really see much difference on there unless you take it all the way down to 0, and what you can see is that that's adjusting the opacity of the white highlight that appears on the text. If you just want to play about that with yourself, you can you'll see what I mean. But for now, ours wants to be 100, and here comes the thing now that's going to define the text much better. Is taking this black right down. We're going to take it down to 16, and there we go. That's now looking very nice. That's what we wanted to achieve. So if we OK that, nope, sorry, no, one more thing to do, and that's a gradient overlay. That just, it stops the green being completely flat, as you'll see. So if we just click on gradient overlay, at the moment it's adding the white to black gradient that's there. Well, that's not much good to us because that's too, that's too strong. So we're going to change the opacity of that right down to 34%. I know that sounds very specific, but there is a reason. And the mode wants to be overlay rather than normal. So what that does is it's still applying the black to white gradient, but it's overlaying it rather than applying it normally as it was. And what we'll do is we'll just reverse that gradient, just so the darker area is at the top when it goes to light. So yeah, that's good. So that is everything on project, and as you can see, that's looking pretty nice. If I just click OK, we have the first layer style done on the text. If I just bring up the original, you can see that matches absolutely perfectly with ours. So that's good. Minimize. What we'll need to do is just save the project, so save, and on the next video we'll do the Minisite layer style.